There are moments in every person's life when they face intense adversity. They're crucibles that forge who they become as individuals and as leaders. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are called to a higher standard, focused on leaving it better than they found it, and paying it forward to the next generations. Now, let's join Fire Chief Randy Brugman as he speaks with leaders from all walks of life, as he explores and learns from their personal journeys and the crucibles that have forged them into better leaders and better people.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Leadership Crucible. Today, it's an honor for me to have Wendy Welch on the show. Wendy is an executive at Lenovo, a multinational technology company renowned as the world's fastest growing PC manufacturer. With her current position as the executive director of U.S. Public Sector, Wendy leads the sales organization responsible for serving state, local, and federal government, K-12, and higher education sectors. Before assuming her current role, Wendy held the position of leading Lenovo's U.S.-valued added reseller channel for both the Intelligent Device Group and Infrastructure Solutions Group. Wendy embarked on her journey with Lenovo in the autumn of 2019, making the beginning of what she affectionately refers to as the third chapter of her career. With over 25 years of experience in the technology sector, Wendy has cultivated a remarkable background that continues to drive her passion and success in collaboration with organizations to foster innovation. Prior to joining Lenovo in 2019, Wendy dedicated 9 years to the unified communications industry, where she assumed a pivotal role leading a global account team in the early stages of her career. Wendy focused exclusively on the higher education sector. Throughout this period, she played a central role in 2 acquisition events and eventually became a founding partner of the first software as a service provider for campus software solutions in the U.S. education market. Wendy's exceptional contributions have garnered recognition in her industry. She was named on CRN's Women of Channel and Power 100 Women of the Channel list in 2021, 2022, and 2023. In 2020, she was recognized as a CRN Woman of Channel and featured on the top 100 People You Don't Know, But You Should. Wendy actively serves on the Women of the Channel Advisory Board. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Willamette University and has completed executive management programs at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business and Stanford University's Graduate School of Business. So Wendy, welcome to the Leadership Crucible Podcast. It's just truly an honor to have you on the show today.
Well, it's great to see you, Randy, and I'm so pleased that you gave me this opportunity. I look forward to talking to you.
Well, thanks. You know, we've discussed in the past the Leadership Crucible and some of the work that we're doing, and it seemed to resonate with you. And I'd just like to start on why. Why does what we're doing resonate with you?
Yeah, you know what first really captured my attention was just the term Leadership Crucible. Frankly, it was a new term for me, and I had to go do a little bit of research, and it really made me stop and think and reflect on my own career. And I do love part of the concept around how when you've conquered adversity, you emerge stronger and how it has built your skills. So after we had met and I really stopped and thought about my career, I could see several of those experiences, really deep experiences, that I could also tie to really transformational moments in my career. And with a leadership journey and the just speed of transformation that we experience across so many aspects of our lives, personally and professionally now, I just think this is such an important concept, and we need to be sharing it more broadly.
Well, thanks. I think you're right, and I think the speed of change that we're seeing throughout society, and especially in your profession, is just phenomenal. And so let's talk a little bit about that. But first, I'd like to ask you, how you got into the technology sector. What led you into that when you left college?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and maybe a little haphazard and unexpected, because frankly, the only class I ever dropped in college was Intro to Programming, because I couldn't get the darn little dot to make the turn at the corner, and I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm out of here. But so as I really started looking for my first job, I did, frankly, kind of luck into a situation. And it was, way back when we still had paper want ads, and you would go through and look at that in the Sunday paper and mail in your resume. But I happened into a situation that, frankly, it was technology focused, but it was customer service oriented. And the more powerful piece is the first coworker that I worked with became the most influential mentor early in my career. So I took an affinity based on a situation that was presented and made available to me where I had a great amount of support, and I rose to the occasion. I found that although I could reflect on dropping that intro to programming class, once I was in a work environment and I had support for a real world application, the technology did resonate with me. It made sense, and I could see how I was using that technology to help others. Through that, kind of first career opportunity, that person that I mentioned as a mentor actually left not long after I had joined, but didn't forget about me. And several months later, called. She had moved to what had been a division of AT&T at the time, serving higher education. And she said, "Wendy, there's an opportunity here for you. I think you would be great. Come over." And that was the role that really began my career in technology. I found that I very quickly was just an on-the-job geek. I very much enjoyed it, but it was that service with customers and watching someone that had a problem, had a solution. You could come in and help. Although your set of tools may be very similar from a technology perspective, there was always a way to help them analyze the problem they were looking to solve or the outcomes that they needed for their environment and their constituents. And there's a bit of an analytical part of that with technology, and I could see the impact I was having. So that really just fueled my love for technology, staying in the sector, and opened up a pretty amazing, special career path for me.
Yeah, pretty interesting career path. And I think there's a takeaway from what you started with, and that is when you left college, you didn't exactly know what you were going to do. And so oftentimes, when you're 20, 21, 22, you don't really know where your path is going to lead you yet. And I know there's some frustration with that at that age, but I think that's just reflective, and that's a good takeaway from your experience that sometimes you don't know where you're going to be led.
Absolutely. And frankly, when I think back about that time in my life, I was very scared. I knew how to be in school. I knew how to be a student. I didn't know how to make that leap to the real world. So that experience for me, that portion of my life, really fuels some of my passion now for mentorship. And I'm so envious. At Lenovo, we have a really robust summer internship program as well as an initial sales rotational experience. And I spend a lot of time volunteering as a mentor. I'm engaging with our early career sales individuals because I want to share my experience. And I did not come from a background where we had enterprise, corporate wide experience. My family was more focused on small business, small family business. So understanding the options was just not part of the lens that I had early in my life. And frankly, I envy our Lenovo interns. It's such an amazing jumping off point. I'd love to encourage and share my experiences with them because I always tell them, like, if I can help you fast forward 5-10 years in your career where it took me longer, like that is important to me to give back. I think it's a great opportunity, these internships that I know not only your company but many others offer, because it gives, I think, an emerging employee some perspective on what they may or may not want to do. But listening to you really followed your passion, and that was really customer service and helping people, and that probably was born out of your experience with your parents' business, I would imagine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go back to the technology piece a little bit, because you talked about the speed of change that we're experiencing in our society, and especially that's being driven by technology development. And so where do you see that today, and where do you see that progressing in the next 10 to 15 years?
Now you're going to say get out the crystal ball, but I'll answer the question this way. I've spent, I feel like it starts aging me, so I say 25 plus years now in the technology field, and certainly as a consumer, experienced all those shifts over my life as we all share. I would say I no longer underestimate technology. I embrace the speed of disruption and change that it will introduce. And I'm also motivated by the efficiencies and the positive impacts that technology can have for us. For myself right now, I work with our public sector organization, so that's heavy K-12 and higher education. So AI is a very hot topic. We see already many benefits of AI, but they're having gone through really the commercial introduction and utilization of the internet, and having been in higher education at that time, and how my customers at that time talked about the internet, we are so much more educated because of the technology shifts, and we're talking about AI in a different way. And yes, is it scary to some people? It is. Are there still unknowns? But I think we are more proactive in looking at the opportunities and how we can be ahead of policy to shape the technology for the good. Yeah. But where does it go from here? I mean, it just feels to me like sky's the limit. I used to say way back in the day when I had my BlackBerry, when my BlackBerry and my cell phone can do the same thing, I'll get one. And we're well past those days. So it frankly excites me for the generations coming behind me in the workforce and in the technology. Just like, holy smokes, what are they going to create? It's just amazing to me, the speed of innovation that we see.
Yeah. So I know throughout your career, and you talked a little bit about the crucible and adversity, and I know you've probably faced a couple of those situations yourself that helped to shape who you've become. And would you mind sharing one or two of those and just say, what was the situation and what was the takeaway from you, and how has it led you to be who you are today?
Yeah, there's always one experience that always comes to mind when I'm asked this question. So let me share that story, because it's the foundation of the current stage of my career. So if I rewind for a bit, I mentioned moving into a technology company that serviced higher education. That was a fantastic experience, and I ended up spending 15 years in this particular technology space in education. And it was fantastic, and it was rewarding. And then I was approaching 40, and I realized that my entire career was consolidated in this very specific field. And I felt like I needed to diversify for a variety of reasons, and I also wanted a different challenge. I took a lot of time. I was very diligent and a little fearful of making a change. But eventually I decided that I wanted to move into pure enterprise B2B sales. And it ended up with an opportunity, and frankly, a company in a situation where I would not have been their traditional candidate, but because technology was shifting, they could see how transferable my skill set was. And ultimately, I got an offer, resigned, accept, and I spend my first week of this new job in headquarters drinking from the fire hose. Now, not to use an analogy from your world, but that's, I felt like I was being knocked over by the fire hose. So all this new product information coming at me, and a new go-to-market and sales approach. And I made it through the week, and it was mostly okay. Week 2 on the job, and I was local. I was a field territory rep. So week 2, I had a coworker who was also a friend. So I felt like I had, maybe some training wheels on, but let me shadow. We went to some customer meetings, went to some partner meetings, and I was feeling really confident and strong through that second week until that Friday. And that Friday, I found myself all alone in my home office with just stacks of literature, tons of emails, new systems, and I felt absolutely overwhelmed. And I did something that I used to not do about work, something else the pandemic changed, but I'll come back to that. But so I found myself absolutely overwhelmed, feeling alone, and I started to cry. And I just sat there and felt like I had made the worst decision for my career. I had left a field where I had been well established. I was an expert. Not only did I know what call should be made, I had the authority and the autonomy to make the call. And now I've given all all of that up, and I've put myself in this situation where I don't know what to do next. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And I felt like I had set myself up to fail. It was a really low moment. But then you ask yourself, what are you going to do? And frankly, I had two choices to make. I could have chosen to call my old partners and say, you were right, I shouldn't have left, like, let me come back. And that was a viable option. But I had to really test myself on why had I made this change. And I had made the change because I wanted to stretch myself. I knew that I had now seen enough of the technology sector and what a career in enterprise sales could bring for me, that I wanted to stay the course and I wanted to push. So I made the decision of, it's okay to be uncomfortable. I shouldn't be fearful of that. It's actually a positive indication that I have made a choice. And then how do you navigate that time? And I realized there were people that were willing to help me, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yep.
So, I stayed the course, ended up having a tremendous 9-year career with that organization. And that moment really became a foundational point for me when I have faced subsequent either role changes or company changes. I now have a process. I now know to expect that it's going to be uncomfortable. That's okay. And I've also cultivated a network over my career, so I know where people's strengths are. I have more self-awareness of where my strengths are and how to piece that together to be successful. But just always expecting that there is a transition period, and it's going to take time to ramp in something new, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's frankly normal. And I think what I didn't understand early in my career, and I certainly do now, at every level in your career, you go through that. It's one of the reasons why people have executive coaches. Just because you've gone from a director to a VP, or it's your first time as a CEO, you still have to have a plan and a process to transition. And that's why mentorship, coaching, sponsorship at every level across your career is such an incredibly valuable resource.
Yeah. That's a great example of moving out of your comfort zone and then not going back. So often we enter something that just really makes us uncomfortable. We get fearful. We start to second guess ourselves, and then we go back. And you chose to, I'm just gonna move on, and I don't want to go back. And so, and I think you probably have been faced with that situation again, but the second time and the third time it was a lot easier to continue to push your comfort zone because you had faith in yourself that you knew you could do it.
That's exactly, and it's some advice I give now when I'm mentoring individuals is, you'll sense it, and everyone kind of physically feels it a different way, and it's those cues that you can watch for. But you've moved outside your comfort zone. Some people, I always kind of I feel a clench and a knot in the pit of my stomach. Some people shrug their shoulders, but you usually feel it physically first before you mentally recognize oh, I'm uncomfortable. And what I remind people is, watch for those cues, and it can be subtle. It could be, oh, I'm about to respond to an email with 50 people and my boss and my boss's boss. And am I really going to hit send on this? And I encourage people, take those moments. You maybe want to read that email a few extra times, but push yourself to hit send and see what happens. Because through that, you'll find a new boundary. Hey, you want to go after a new role, you've been offered a new opportunity, and you don't feel like you're an expert, you didn't check every box on the job description, that's okay. The organization saw transferable skills in you, and you should lean into that. Feeling uncomfortable is positive, and it's only going to be temporary. The key to that transition is making sure you ask for help, you lean into the network that you've cultivated, and move through it. And you definitely, not only do you have a process and you can get through it the second or third time. For me, it's made me seek out those moments. Once I am comfortable in the role, it's okay, I'm ready for the next challenge because I know I can take it on and be successful.
Yeah, and just having the awareness that you really never grow in your comfort zone. It's when you step out of it that you really start to develop and learn new skills and I think that's. But it's difficult to do, and so I think your advice is very, very, very sound. You know, those physical cues always come first.
They do. That's fight or flight, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what it's all about. So we've talked a little bit about the pandemic shift in the workforce, but I mean, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the other challenges you're facing in the workplace today?
Yeah, I do think there are, again, going back some of those generational shifts and being very aware. And I'm part of a women's leadership group, and we have those discussions, and we're about the same age in general. So challenging ourselves to think, just because that's how we came up in the business, or that's how we came up learning and growing, does that necessarily translate to the current generation? Because it goes back to technology is so different. So I do think awareness across that generational gap is something really important for leaders to be aware of and to be plugged in. Personally, for me, I do a lot of skip levels and roundtables with individuals across my organization because I know I will benefit from having a different perspective, and the diversity of voices and inputs makes me a more aware and I think a more progressive leader. I think building trust, especially because we're coming out of so much remote work, but building trust, it's always important, but the last few years have actually blurred the lines between work and home in a different way.
Yeah.
And I talked about, and I shared, like, I had this big rule for myself 20 years ago, like, never cry about work, don't cry at work. Like, your teams need to be able to see you. So again, I think from some of us in different generations, those lessons of old, it's okay to let those go. And I can definitely share, I've seen leaders cry on calls during the pandemic. I personally have, and that's the feedback I receive is, it breaks down barriers. So building trust, really allowing your teams to see you, and then making sure you're taking the opportunity as those relationships increase, that you're empowering your teams. So I think the very formal hierarchy is a little bit more blurred, and there's so many great ideas that come from creative individuals, or kind of that concept of crowdsourcing. We see that coming into the corporate workplace. So I very much push a empowerment mentality in my organization. We should control what we can control. We are also empowered to make change within the boundaries of our organization. So I think that it complements more of that creator mentality that's present in the generation entering the workforce. It creates more of a progressive leadership style in my personal experience. It opens my mind, but also some of the best ideas for my organization come because we have that open transparency and that feeling of collaboration and empowerment.
So, as you're aware, the Leadership Crucible is really focusing on, developing or helping to develop our next generation of leadership. And we've talked in the past, just about the state of leadership in our society, and just kind of wanted to get your take on what you see going on in general in our country, and what you're seeing, throughout, the state of your industry.
Yeah, from a leadership perspective, I see so many individuals that want to go on that leadership path, but either aren't sure how to start, or don't have access to the development skills and professional support and programs to do so effectively. You could be a little cliche and say leaders are born, not made. I don't necessarily agree with that. There's different characteristics, and again, if we go back to some of those experiences, those will push and pull people in different ways. So I do see difficulty for individuals across different environments, and how do I access those resources? It's if you happen to be in a situation with a large organization that is investing quite a bit of energy into professional development programs and having a career path, you're lucky in some cases, because so many organizations don't do that. And if you think about the number of small businesses or mid-market businesses, that is so much of just the power of our economy, and those organizations don't always have the funds or the access to those resources. So where do you turn? Trial and error, may get you there, but it's one of the pieces, Randy, we've talked about that I'm so excited that the foundation is creating is better access and a lower cost access for individuals to go and seek out those leadership development opportunities. It is hard, and you need to tap into people that have had those experiences. You need to be able to put yourself in a trusted place where you could have a really candid conversation of, I'm a first-time manager. I'm trying to transition to a higher level leadership position. Those roles are different. Managing is more tactical. Leadership is more strategic. The scope of the organization may change. How do you really hone your communication style, or how do you influence where you don't have direct authority? And those aren't concepts that even in my career, and I've been fortunate to work with some organizations that have those programs, that you need to have folks around you or other resources to go be able to understand what those concepts are. That the leadership concepts that I have really been able to hone are because I had external help. And again, I think the difficulty is, how are we making investments to provide more access to those key development programs and opportunities for people that want to make that path on their career.
Yeah, and I think also it's just for the people that that may not be working in a large corporation. They may be a small business, or they're starting their own business, and I think they need to have an avenue to also be able to train themselves up and to get different perspectives. And so, that's one of the things we're trying to do is just get interviews like this out so that they hear a different perspective and think about things in maybe a different way. So I appreciate your willingness to be on and share your insights with us today. So for the next generation of leaders, we talked about just this emergence of the workforce, but what are some of the things that will challenge them? The folks that are coming in today that, 6 or 7 years from now, they're going to be in mid-level positions or starting to go up that leadership ladder. What are they going to be faced with? What are some of those emerging issues?
Yeah, I think some of the emerging issues will go back and be rooted in the speed of transformation from technology and very disruptive technologies, and understanding different optimization challenges that individuals will have. Technology will automate in some areas, and it will create more efficiencies and actually open up new opportunities. And how, especially as an individual and as a leader, not be fearful of the change, but look at how you can help drive change for the more positive outcomes. But that is definitely a mentality shift that folks will have to make. And I think a bit harder when at least for me, it was harder for me to have that willingness and openness to change earlier in my career, because again, I needed some of those crucible experiences to understand you can get on the other side of those events, and transformation is in fact, very positive. I touched on my philosophy about allowing yourself to be uncomfortable in your career, or even pushing yourself to go find those opportunities. An interesting piece as I share my career story with individuals that's really coming to clarity for me is the notion around the imposter syndrome. And traditionally, you see the imposter syndrome attached to women in the workplace. And I've been pleasantly informed, kind of surprised, but well informed. That is not, imposter syndrome is gender neutral. We all have different fears, or will question ourselves. So I really encourage people, reject it. If you're feeling that moment of, should I really have a seat at this table? Should I really have this role? I go back and say, yes, you should. You're just feeling uncomfortable because you're going through that transition, and it'll be temporary, and you'll ramp up and you'll be past it. So I really dislike that concept of the imposter syndrome in the workplace, because I think it can easily hold people back. And again, as we were talking about, so much being remote, or the quick communication, being able to really have a place and a mentor where you can talk through those pieces, help you get through those and understand that there is another side, or if you're finding yourself in a lot of adversity and kind of that, you might be in a crucible event in the making and you don't know it yet. That network, helps you understand. So that feeds into the other piece of advice I give to folks, especially early career, is nurture your network.
Yeah.
Relationships are key, but I think it's the false positive of technology. So you could say, just because of my LinkedIn profile or choose your social media account, I have 5,000 connections. Well, how many authentic connections do you have? So that's part of my mentoring advice. Is over your career, you'll have some formal mentors, some informal mentors, some people that influence, and different individuals will impact you in different ways. They may ebb and flow over your career, but I personally have found there are some key relationships that have really stuck with me. And frankly, I now have shaped, and I call it my own board of directors. So I have 8 or 9 individuals throughout my career that I view as my own board of directors. And there's individuals there every time I have a career opportunity change. I call and get their perspective. I also nurture those. It's the trap that is easy to fall into is to think, well, because I'm connected on LinkedIn and they liked my post or I commented on their post, we're connected. But that's actually not enough. I make a point that core group, my board of directors, I drop a note occasionally. I share a key instance where, hey, remember that advice you gave me? I was able to just put it to use, or I paid it forward and I saw this. Like, as you invest in individuals and as you mentor, it is so rewarding to hear that impact and that you actually had a positive influence. So relationships are key, but taking the time and being cognizant enough that how you nurture your network is a differentiator. And when you're ready to call and ask for a favor, someone actually is current on your life and they're more apt to say, yes, I'd welcome the opportunity to help with your next step. And then that just feeds into why I'm so passionate about mentoring. Again, early, my early career, I was scared of making the transition to the workforce. I didn't understand the resources. I didn't understand how to ask for help. And I've learned so much. I give back, or I share my career story, because if I can just touch one individual and it shaves 5 or 10 years off their career ambition, I feel like, I've contributed and it's part of what feeds me. Again, service to customers, service to people on my team. That is part of my passion, what gets up and drives me every day to do the job.
Yeah. I mean, you can change one person's life and it could change their entire family, and it's just the trickle down effect is generational. And so, and I think your advice on finding your board of directors, that's a really great way to put it. Find 4 or 5 people that you can call, and get good feedback, not positive feedback, because sometimes they'll just say, here's some things they should be saying, here's some things you need to think about. They're not going to tell you. Good mentors never tell you what to do. They just say, well, here's some options you might want to explore before you make your decision.
Absolutely, and you always want to make sure you have someone that'll tell you the hard facts and the truth when you might not want to hear it, because as a leader, I have one person on my board in my network that when I need a gut check, like, am I taking this situation wrong? Like, does someone need to call me out? Like, it's so incredibly valuable to have a trusted relationship where you can have that type of dialogue.
Yeah, I think you can have a professional mentorship where you're getting different perspectives, but I think you need to have one person or 2 people that you can call, and they're your reality mentors. They're the ones that are going to push back. They're not going to tell you what to do, but they're going to push back on you a little bit, and that's important. Because it makes you step back and reflect a little bit differently than, just looking at a situation from well, you may want to think about this, because they make you actually think about yourself.
I haven't heard it phrased that way, but Randy, I'm going to use that. And I know who exactly I'm going to say, like, hey, reality mentor, I need the gut check this week.
Yeah. So, So, final question. We talked a little bit about finding your own board of directors, but any other advice you'd like to give to this next generation as they're coming up and looking at their own path to success that you'd like to give them for their own life journey?
Yeah, it's be willing to take risks and be willing to fail fast. I think that is another area that creates learning. It helps push us to maintain the speed of transformation that's helping. And not every environment or work environment creates a safe space to do so.
Yeah.
So again, as you're looking at different opportunities, it's not just about finding the position or the job or the field you want. You also want to find an organization whose culture resonates with you and a manager that can support you. So putting yourself in a situation where you're encouraged to take a risk, or you have a safe space to stretch yourself and try new skills and even fail fast. You learn so much from those moments, and it accelerates where you go. So it's, again, some of those early lessons, and then I can think about the one big failure I made early in the day. Like it shaped me. But I also then knew how I could get through it. I had a manager that gave me great perspective, because the reality is you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. I probably made 10 mistakes already today. Like that is just the reality and the nature. But it's, what do you do when that happens? Have you taken responsibility? Have you taken accountability? We get through those so fast and so quickly, that being in an environment where you feel supported and safe to do that, I think would really reflect that you put yourself in a positive career environment, and I think you'll flourish faster. And frankly, if you're not in that environment, you may want to go find an environment that's better suited to that type of development and setting you up for success.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know I took one job through my career path that probably in the second or third week, and we had moved the entire family across the country, and just I knew the value alignment was not right, and kind of had to ride it out for a little bit until we could relocate when the kids were of the age to do so. But it was pretty immediate, and you're right. I mean, when your values don't align with where you're working, it's a continual conflict. Almost, it's every day you're in conflict, and really important. Great piece of advice.
Excellent. Thanks, Randy. I've so enjoyed talking with you today. And again, just kudos, and I'm very supportive of your work and your mission. I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Well, thanks, Wendy. Appreciate you being on the show today. Great advice, and look forward to chatting with you here in the future.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Crucible Podcast. If you have a story of adversity you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it. Join us next time as we continue to explore how to live lives of success and significance.